Hi, this is Zach from Worn & Wound, and today I'll be looking at the Zenith Defy Classic in black ceramic. Many of the watches we cover on Worn & Wound, and indeed many of the watches I've personally owned and admired over the years, owe a significant debt to the past in the way they're designed. With vintage watches exploding in value and popularity, it's no wonder that modern watch designs over the last decade have used classic watches, especially sports watches, as a template. It can be kind of a drag, though, when all the watches you see start to look the same. This is partly a hazard of being an enthusiast. When you look at a lot of watches, you naturally start to notice trends, and there's a very human tendency at play to go against the grain and seek out something a little different. Well, the Zenith Defy Classic is definitely something a little different. And while the Defy certainly has a heritage of its own, there's no mistaking this watch in blacked out ceramic with an open dial as a throwback piece. It's thoroughly and unapologetically modern in every way, and that's really its fundamental appeal. Let's start by looking at the dial. Now, you may have encountered this watch in the past or read about it elsewhere and heard the term skeletonized floated around, and I admit I've used that word myself when discussing it. But it's worth defining our terms here so we can understand what the Defy Classic is and what it is not. To skeletonize something in watch terms means to open it up and lay it bare. We hear this term most often applied to movements, and a true skeletonized movement is a sight to behold and extremely difficult to accomplish. This movement, while visible from the front and back, isn't really skeletonized. The structure of the movement components and its architecture hasn't been significantly changed for an aesthetic effect. That isn't to say that what Zenith has done here isn't impressive or worthy of interest, because I think it absolutely is, but calling this watch skeletonized, at least in reference to the movement, is a bit of a misnomer. So what has Zenith done? Essentially what we have here is a watch with a very interesting, very intricate open dial. You'll notice these tuning fork-like objects that radiate from the center of the watch. Zenith says this design is meant to recall their star logo. This is essentially acting as the dial's surface, provides a contrast against which you can read the time-telling elements, the hands and the hour markers. Those hour markers, when examined closely, are really a highlight of the watch's design and the way they seem to precariously cantilever from the edge of the minutes track over the movement below. You might be wondering what legibility is like in a real-world setting. In spite of the black on black look, it's actually a pretty simple watch to read, and I was pleasantly surprised by my own ability to adjust to it pretty quickly. In normal lighting conditions, it's easy to pick out the shape of the hands against the open dial. Darkness, however, is another story, and that shouldn't be surprising. This is a blacked out watch. You shouldn't take it camping or rely on it to check the time in a darkened theater. There's lume on the hands and hour markers, but it's honestly pretty ineffective unless you happen to hit it with a UV light. Again, it's black lume. In my estimation, this isn't a grave concern. If legibility in the dark is a legitimate primary need in your next watch, this one's likely not even close to your radar. The modern techie vibe of the dial is extended to the Zenith Defy's case, which is made from black ceramic. As a material for a watch case, the primary benefit of ceramic is in its ability to resist scratches. I've been wearing this Defy pretty consistently since the summer, and it still looks new, even on the highly polished bezel. The case is sleek and modern, a function not only of its dimensions, but also the simple fact that it's black. And black makes just about any watch look sleeker and more modern. The Defy case is sharp and angular and has been given a matte finish. While it would have been nice to see some more visually interesting finishing happening on the case, I can't complain about the quality of the execution of the matte finish. It feels like a futuristic tool watch, and the bezel punches well above its weight and feels truly premium to me. It's polished on the side and has been given a vertical brushing on the top. If cost was a concern when Zenith was deciding how to finish each element of the case, I think they made the right choice in going all out on the bezel. After all, this is the part of the case that you see most often when you're actually checking the time. When most of us think of Zenith movements, we go right to the El Primero, with their much-loved automatic chronograph. But Zenith has other movement families, and they're of a similar high quality to their chronos. Tucking away inside the Defy, you'll find the Zenith Elite 670 SK, an automatic caliber made fully in-house that beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour and includes a date at 6. This line of movements was introduced in the mid-90s and has proven to be reliable over the years, if not particularly extraordinary from a technical perspective. That said, it's well finished and has a few party tricks up its sleeve. First, let's talk about the date display. Part of the fun of an open dial is seeing how familiar components like a date ring behave when they aren't hidden behind a thin sheet of brass. On the Defy, you can see the date wheel running around the perimeter of the dial, just barely visible through a tinting effect, except at 6, where you read the current day's date. What's also nice about the date implementation here is that it can be adjusted in either direction at any time of day without putting stress on the movement, which is a nice feature for those of us with a tendency to wear their watches in a rotation that means inevitable adjustments for a correct reading. Also, the silicon escape wheel is visible through the dial side if you look for it carefully. It's right around 10 o'clock. Depending on lighting conditions, it reads as anything from a bright blue to purple. It's just a really fun pop of color to an otherwise blacker than black dial. It also serves to highlight some of the technical prowess that Zenith has with the materials they've used, and underscores the larger technical innovations of a lightweight ceramic sports watch. The Defy is mounted on a black rubber strap that matches the tone of the case and the sporty, casual vibe of the watch really nicely. It has an integrated look, but technically attaches to the case with a normal spring bar. Still, it would be hard for me to recommend experimenting with straps for this case. As the lugs are so short, it's tough to imagine a leather strap that's thin enough at the lug side to fit to the case. Zenith does make an alligator strap backed with rubber for their non-ceramic Defys, and those will fit this watch, but honestly, the rubber is really comfortable and a perfect complement to the case. I'm a constant strap switcher, but really haven't had a desire to change things up on this Defy. The rubber is just a really good match. The fold-over clasp that has been used here is simple and matches the light and thin nature of the rest of the Defy. It's made not from ceramic, but a black-coated titanium. Now, there's nothing wrong with titanium, but its use here, and the fact that it's coated, means it will be susceptible to scratches and other wear in a way that the rest of the watch isn't, and that coating could even wear off over time, given enough desk diving. The Defy Classic is a lot of fun to wear, and if you're at all inclined to try out a ceramic watch, or a watch with a really cool open dial, or both, it's definitely worthy of your consideration. And while its style is something of the current house LVMH style that you find in watches from Zenith's corporate siblings, I think you can make a strong case for the original Defy from the 70s setting the template for what we see today. This watch is a modern continuation of an idea, a robust modern sports watch with an avant-garde design that was way ahead of its time, predating even the Royal Oak, when the first Defys began hitting stores in the 70s. 50 years later, the Defy Classic's name is well earned. This line truly is a classic, with real history and innovation behind it, and the current ceramic incarnation feels like a fitting modern spin on the Defy ethos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up below, and subscribe to our channel. For the full review and other great watch content, be sure to visit wornandwound.com.